Well, welcome back to Love at First Write. I am back right here by your side. And so is Annie Lennox and the Eurythmics, with big strong arms to protect ourselves and all those absolutely wonderful, wonderful things that that stories bring us, that love stories bring us, that that we just, you know, hunger for. Okay, so today I'm thinking I want to talk about story fatigue, which is something that I think writers and readers feel alike. Maybe readers feel it when they read too much of the same author, especially if that author is a pretty intense writer, but writers get it all the time, and I have been dealing with it in a big way the last few weeks, because I've just been working not only so intensely on my edits for the, you know, the first novel in this big series that I'm writing, but I've also been working on a novella for that series, and I've been storyboarding the second novel because I have made the decision, and this is not an unusual decision for someone who is world building like I am and who is really attempting to write a big series, to at least well, definitely finish storyboarding in detail the second novel before before I endeavor to launch the first novel, to get it out there, but possibly even write the second novel, because really once you get the first two books written, you are in the world, and that world is fixed. It's not going to change. And one of the things that happens when you are writing a series, for example, you know, or a series that must go in a certain order, usually a chronological order, is that, you know, the funniest thing is when you start writing the second book often, or you start writing a novella, as I did, you start seeing things that you did not see at first in the original story, in the original novel that you wrote, thinking, oh, well, this is a finished product, and suddenly you realize it's not a finished product. And you might discover things about a character, you know, like, oh my God, so-and-so is gay, you know, or, you know, which really, writers do discover that about their characters in the same way that we discover that about people we know in our own lives. That's what's so interesting about the writing process, because it is a process of immense discovery. And we also, as writers, learn things about the story as we go along, and we realize, you know, if you're writing fantasy, oh my God, that person was a god. I had no idea that person was a god or a half god. The way perhaps maybe George R.R. Martin had no idea that Khaleesi was the mother of dragons when he started writing her, but then suddenly he was like, no, wait a minute, she's a dragon, she's immune to fire. You know, these things really do come to you. And one of the ways, for me at least, to break through story fatigue, because I have been so fatigued trying to figure out just, like, you know, the little things that are not right with the first novel in my series, the things that I know are just slightly off on the dial, that if I was able to break through and change, would just open the whole thing up. For me, that's why it's so important to be working on more than one story at once, to be working on more than one project, to, you know, in this case, be working on a novella for this book, to be also, you know, starting to storyboard the second book, and also thinking about another Cold War thriller that I'm writing that takes me completely out of this universe, but somehow ends up informing this world of fantasy and romance that I'm writing in. You know, this crazy Cold War espionage, Eastern European story, you know, ends up giving me ideas. And that did happen, where I feel like finally I had this breakthrough, and it was all because I stopped and I worked on something else. And in fact, I sat down and helped my husband with a plot point today, which I really didn't want to do because I was so immersed in what I was doing. And it ended up, first of all, I would do that for him because you have to do those things for the ones you love, and you should. But it also ended up being a wonderful thing for me to do. And I knew it even as I was sitting there, you know, thinking about my own story. But I knew as I was helping him go through what he was trying to figure out that that just that whole process is so good for the mind. You know, it tricks the mind, it trains the mind, and it gets us thinking about perhaps people and plot points in a way that we weren't before because we were stuck. So that is probably it on this relatively short, mercifully short Love at First Write. Please do stop at my at Patreon to check out what I've got this week, because there's all sorts of stuff up. I've got some visual inspiration of art and photography for Savage Island, which is the novella I'm writing for this series, and I have some chapters up from that, and I have all sorts of a mini vlog, and even pictures of Barney, my writing companion, who's asleep on my couch back there, and for once not snoring, snorting, and farting. So have a great one. Thanks.